Aloha and welcome to Author Talk. I'm Lori Yerksa, coming to you from the beautiful Big Island of Hawaii, and I'm thrilled with my guest today, Rebekah Hope. We're going to be talking about her book, Beyond the Brokenness. Do you have a copy of it you can hold up so we can see what
I
the cover
do.
looks like?
Yeah, they can
Yes,
see. Yeah.
Beyond the Brokenness. It's available on Amazon, and we will remind you of that as well at the end. But I'm excited. I loved your book. You are such a brave girl. Welcome, Rebekah. I'm happy to have you today. Um,
Thank you. Yeah, thank
yes.
you.
Yes. So start off telling us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am currently in Nashville, Tennessee, where I have lived for the past 2 years. But I was born and raised on a farm in northern Michigan,
Mm-hmm.
so definitely not the city life.
Yes.
Grew up Amish. My family is still Amish. I left the Amish when I was 17 years old, and 8.5 years later, I am kind of living the city life, which is a little bit different than the farm life.
Yes, yes, because you just said you grew up in northern Michigan and now you're kind of in Nashville, so that's from Amish to Nashville is a
Yeah.
long way, a long
It's a little bit of a change, yes.
Oh gosh. So you grew up Amish, and that was like one of the things that really drew me to your book and to your story because not a lot of people really know what it's like to grow up Amish. Maybe, people have seen movies or something, but if we haven't had like that experience or been around that, it's really hard to fathom actually now because you said this was just what 7.5 years ago that you
Yeah.
yeah so
Yeah.
this
Like, yeah,
is
7.5 years,
current day. This is
yeah.
so. What would one of the days be like? Growing up, you were on a farm up in northern Michigan.
Well, because most days were the same, that's kind of easy for me to recite. But I usually woke up around 5:30 in the morning. It would still be dark out. I'd get up, go out and milk cows by hand, feed the chickens, the calves, the horses, like the animals. We had a dairy farm, so we had all kinds of animals. Feed them and just the morning ritual, the morning chores, and then once that was done, head inside, wash up, make breakfast for a family of 10. There were 8 children.
Okay.
And then after breakfast, it was washing the dishes, cleaning up, and then packing lunches, getting ready for school, heading off to school, and be in school for the day. Usually get home around, I think it was like 4 o'clock. And then we had to change, get ready quick, and go do chores again. Do the same thing all over again that we did that morning. Once that was done, come inside, make supper, eat. Um, we would clean up afterwards, the dishes, and then the whole thing, and then after that, we usually got a little bit of family time. The family would always gather in the living room after a day's work was done, just to chill a little bit and maybe read the newspaper or catch up on if anybody had any exciting news from that day they wanted to share,
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. And then we'd always say an evening prayer together and then off to bed.
Wow. That's a long day. And I do see that the lighting in my room is blinking. I don't know why, but so your day, like every day pretty much started at 5:30. This is the whole family. And if I recall, I think it's like at 5 years old is when you start to go and work out on the farm. You just have chores like everybody else, kind of starting at 5.
Yeah, I mean, it can be different for every child, but for me, it was 5 years old.
Okay. So starting at 5 years old, your day was just packed full of basically working on the farm and going to school because What I noticed that you didn't say was watch TV, listen to music, play video games,
Well, that
text your
was
friends.
all. Yeah, that was all considered of the devil. There was definitely none of that in our home. It was a
Yes.
very simple. I like to refer to it as the pioneer life.
Hmm.
It's as close to as you'll get it. Like I was always a fan of Laura Ingalls. I don't know if you
Hmm.
know who that is, but
Yes.
always a fan of her. I read her whole series when I was still Amish and was always a big fan. And I would say it's as close to those days as you'll get it. Everything
Yes.
was horse and bucky,
Oh,
and machinery was horse drawn. Most of it was done by hand. Yeah.
okay. So
No
there,
technology.
yeah. So no technology, no electricity for
Right.
lights. No, it was kind of lanterns and um, basically lanterns and maybe
Yeah,
candles.
oil lamps,
Yes.
lanterns. We did have battery operated flashlights sometimes, but other than that, there were no electric lights.
And you're in northern Michigan. I hope you had a big fireplace because that just sounds cold.
Oh, it was cold. It was very cold.
And so
Yeah.
you're just in the pioneer kind of Amish, very simple life. You're taught that I mean, the teaching is that the outside world is bad, that it will harm you, or that it's evil to use your word. And so, growing up like that, um, most people, I don't know like percentages of who leaves the Amish community, but I would say most people believe that or buy into it.
Yeah.
But you didn't. But I'm getting ahead of myself because I want you to talk about school and kind of the way you had to dress and all of that, just to give us like a really thorough picture because it's so different,
Yeah.
from the modern world. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we had as far as like dressing, there was a kind of a one style for all. There I could only have one style dress. Now as a little girl, like we had one style for the little girls, and then as you got older, you got a different style.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there were like three different styles, but they were also all very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but as far as like having different style dresses at one time, we never had that. And they were all very plain. We couldn't have any pattern. It had to be dark colors. It had to be a certain kind of material. Long dresses, long sleeve. Yeah, just very simple, I guess. And the women always had to have their head covered, their
Mm-hmm.
hair up and covered.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yes. So, on one hand, picking out your clothes was really easy.
Oh yeah, because you had
Yeah.
you knew exactly what you were supposed to wear. Like there
Yes.
weren't a lot of options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so you're just kind of in the long, plain, simple, uh, not stylish, dress that everybody wears with kind of a
Hmm.
bonnet for the covering of your head. And then since I think your Amish community was more strict or more conservative than some Amish communities, and you were pretty much, I think, kind of way out in the middle of nowhere. I'm kind of getting to school. What was school like?
School, well, actually the school I went to, it was a one-room schoolhouse and it was on my dad's property, so we could walk to school every day.
Okay.
And the weather really didn't affect it. It wasn't We didn't have snow days or anything like that. It
Mm-hmm.
was, we lived out in the country, as you said, in the middle of nowhere. And my dad, like, he had a 100-acre farm, so it was
Mm.
a big farm, and
Mm-hmm.
there was a lot to do on the farm, so we really didn't need a lot outside of the farm. But at the same time, it got old, the same thing over and over again. um it was I at one point in my life there were like a few years that I never saw a town. Like all
Wow.
I saw was out in the country, the farm. Yeah, I didn't it was very rare to even see a town, and the closest town was like, oh, I don't know if I'm getting this right, but it took 1 hour with horse and buggy. I'm
Okay.
not even sure how many miles that would be, but
Hmm.
it was a little bit of a distance if it was from was horse and buggy.
Yeah. And so, um,
Mhm.
so the school, the one room schoolhouse was pretty much on your dad's property on your farm, and then
Yeah.
so were all grades. How did the grades work? In
So they only have a first through eighth grade.
okay.
And once you graduate eighth grade, you're considered, you're done with school. Everything you need to learn from here on out, you will be taught at home. There's usually one teacher, average 20 students that depended on that specific area. Sometimes there would be more, and the teacher would have somebody helping them. There would be two teachers. But the school I went to, there was only one teacher, average 20 students, sometimes not even that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we had, as far as classes, we had English, arithmetic, which math, we
Mm-hmm.
called it arithmetic.
Yeah.
What else was it? English, arithmetic, spelling, reading, and we did have penmanship. Some of the classes had penmanship, not all
Mm-hmm.
of them. But yeah, other than that, I think that was about it. Like
Okay.
we didn't have, yeah, just the basics really.
Yeah. So really, just kind of the fundamentals of learning math and reading and writing. So there was no music, no sports, no art, nothing like that. Just
No.
okay.
We Now when we had recess, we were allowed to go outside and play some games. Like there were different games we could play,
Mm-hmm.
but there were no sports. Like sports were, yeah, they
Yeah.
were not allowed.
Yeah. Crazy. So even though there was kind of at the most 20 kids at school, and you probably knew all of them because you went to school with them all the time, but you still kind of had a hard time with school, and even in a one room school, with very few kids, there could still be bullying and that kind of thing. So, did you had that experience? Um,
Yeah, so as far as that, it's I look at it this way. It's not necessarily the number of people
mm-hmm.
that causes this. It is the kind of people. And for myself, I just, I grew up, I never really felt like I had any friends. And um, as far as like in school, like I was bullied most of the time
Mm-hmm.
from most of the students. Um, yes, as you said, like I knew all of them. A lot of them were actually my cousins. So in the Amish community, there's a lot of relatives. I have
Mm-hmm.
cousins I've never met.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it was just like not getting along with each other and picking on each other. I was just never the favorite of anyone. I never fit in anywhere. I always felt like an outcast, and I was a little bit heavier too in my when I went to school, and so I was bullied a lot for my weight and just the way I looked. And
Mm-hmm.
growing up on a farm, 8 kids, my parents didn't necessarily have a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
and because of that, like we didn't have quite as nice clothes as other people, and um just other things too. Like we didn't have what we considered the rich kids had. Like we
Mm-hmm.
were the poor kids in school, and we got picked on for it.
Okay. Ah, darn it. You would hope like out in the middle of small country that wouldn't happen, but nonetheless you were picked on, and just felt like you didn't fit in to, just that way of life in general.
Mhm.
Just, you weren't you're not or weren't wired just to live in Amish life. And so at one point, you ran away, essentially, as you talk about in your book. So why did you have to run away?
Yeah, well, I guess at a very young age, I was the kind of person, if you told me to do something, I questioned why. And if you couldn't tell me why I was supposed to do something, then I felt like I had to find out for myself. I
Mm,
felt like it was something where maybe you're just telling me to do it because you're the one in authority and I don't really have to do it. Like
yes.
I saw a lot of abusing your authority
Mm, okay.
for those that were in my authority. Um, I I didn't find the answers I was looking for in my own community, so I thought the only way to find the answers I was looking for was to leave the community.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that at 17 years old. I moved from Michigan to Minnesota with the clothes on my back, $20 in my pocket, and a bus ticket from Michigan to Minnesota. And I didn't even know how to read a bus ticket.
Yeah.
But by the grace of God, if you read my book,
Yes.
you will see like I made it. God helped me through it, and I'm here today.
Yes, yes, and we'll get to all those like juicy parts about God and stuff. So basically, you can't, because at 17 you're of age, right? In Michigan and kind of the
In
Amish.
Michigan, you're
Yeah.
considered an adult at
Okay.
17. Yeah.
So legally, like in Michigan, you could have just left, but you can't just leave the Amish community. And I want to just say this isn't bashing the Amish community. It's awesome. A lot of people love it, and that's not the point of your book at all. So I wanted to just make that clear. It just wasn't for you. But you can't just leave, so you have to run away, um, which just is so mind-boggling to me. I love that about you. Just your courage is so inspiring. So at 17, which was, I think you said earlier, 7.5 years ago. Okay, you.
Yeah, it was February of 2013. So sometimes my math doesn't add up, so I'll just give you the date.
Okay, so
Yeah, it was.
yeah, 2013. So again, this is modern day. This is like now. You
Mhm.
you leave Michigan, the Amish life. You go to Minnesota. I know you had a sister there. So what are some of the things that you encounter for the very first time at the age of 17 in
Oh,
2013?
there were so many things. Talk about culture shock. You would think, I grew up in America, but I had no idea the America lifestyle, like how Americans live, the modern day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was so fantasized, if that's the word, by a lot of things. I was like, a microwave. Oh, you can cook a meal in like 2 minutes. Wow. And another thing I really liked, I will say, is waking up in the morning and you get out of bed and you don't have to be cold. Like you can turn the
Yes.
heat on, or you
Yes.
can have like a carpeted floor. That wasn't, we only have hardwood. We weren't
Mm-hmm.
allowed to have carpeted floor. So that to me was, wow, this is fancy. That's what I thought.
Right
And
on.
um I there were just a lot of things to learn, just technology. I had never used a computer before. Um I watched a movie for the first time, a television show, like going out and just not being afraid that your parents are going to come after you because maybe you're not doing what they want you to do. Like
Yeah.
there was a lot of, I lived under fear for a very long time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I felt a little bit of that freedom when I left. And talking about like things I experienced for the first time, like I learned how to ride a bike, and
Wow.
then I learned how to drive a car.
Mm-hmm.
I went to school. I got my GED. I did that at a local school there in Rochester, and to go in there and everything was computerized and you could actually like it was also different.
Yes,
It was
it probably
so
felt like the
different.
space age or something. Every
Yeah, something like, yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so you you go out, you manage to kind of navigate your way and um, get your GED, learn how to drive a car. So you must have found work as well, started making money.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I started working for the first time as to get paid. I actually got paid for the first time. I've been working my whole life, but
Yes.
first time I actually got the paycheck. And I worked as a waitress at a
Okay.
fast food restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
That was my very first job, and I got that because through my sister. She was working there.
Mm-hmm.
So I thank God for her every day. She's amazing. Yeah. I have
Yeah.
one sister that left the Amish as well. But yeah, that was my first job, and then I just upgraded from there, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Found a better job and then a better paying job, and yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know why that I I feel like part of the reason why you were kind of able to make that huge leap and navigate successfully um, rather quickly was because of the work ethic and the yeah just the hard work that you were used to day after day and knowing that you do need to work for what you want. Things usually don't just get handed to you, so you were
Right.
able to implement kind of some of that mindset. um,
Yeah, I will say what got me through to where I am today, it was definitely God, but having the mindset that if it's going to be, it's up to me.
mm,
That's what I learned at a very young age, that I can't trust on anybody having my back or doing it for me or have anybody else to fall back on.
mm-hmm.
The only person I had to fall back on was my parents and going back home, and that was not going to happen. I I vowed that I would do whatever I need to do in order for that to not happen, because that wasn't an option.
Mm-hmm.
So, who's having that mentality, I think a lot of people, they have the mentality where they can go back to their
Yes.
parents,
Yeah.
and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it also sets your mentality to a default of, I don't really have to do this, so if I fail, it's okay. That
Mm-hmm.
wasn't an option for me.
Yes, gosh, and it's just you see, you didn't have a plan B, so
Right.
you had to make it happen, which is just still mind blowing to me. Your courage and how brave you are, but in this new world, you're meeting friends and everything, but it doesn't all go right. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
when you leave the Amish community, for myself, when I left the Amish community, but I did not leave the mentality I had. I didn't leave what had been ingrained in me. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't leave who I was, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I could leave and leave everything behind. I left everyone behind, but not everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so I grew up with the mentality, my dad was my first the first man I ever looked up to.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the one I looked up to as to how men should treat you. And not knowing that it was unhealthy or wrong, or this is not how men should treat you. I didn't know that. So I expected men to treat me like my dad did. I expected them to abuse me, to use me, and if I didn't do as they say, there would be consequences.
Okay.
That led to I was raped at 18 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and I had vowed that I would uh, keep myself clean until the day of my wedding, and that just led to a lot of brokenness,
Mm-hmm.
shame, hurt, even more feeling like somehow I had not just disappointed myself, but disappointed my parents. And
Mm-hmm.
what did I do to deserve this? Because I was convinced I deserved it. And
Mm-hmm.
everything that happened to me, it's because I deserve it, because that's all I had ever heard. If
Sure.
if something happened, it was because you did something to deserve it. And so much so that I didn't tell anybody for years. It just ate at me.
Oh,
um,
yeah.
and it was shortly after that that I was so down, so out with life, with myself, that I actually attempted suicide. I was suicidal, had depression for since I was like 9 years old. And I just finally I believed in God, and I was actually praying that he would take my life. And when he didn't, I was convinced I had to do something to help him. I was like, okay, if you don't, then I will. But by the grace of God, you can see I'm here today to share my
Yes.
story.
Yes.
I survived that, and I'm all the stronger for it. And now, like, my passion is just to help people who are where I was, to help them understand that there is a better way. It doesn't have to be this way. And that's why my book is called Beyond the Brokenness. I want people to understand what is beyond the brokenness in their life, because there is something. There's
Yes.
something beyond that. And I found it when I found Jesus. When I started my relationship with Jesus is when I found what was beyond that. I was so broken and shattered. I thought it would be impossible to mend that brokenness, but God proved me different, because there is nobody is too far gone for God to not reach them, or for God to not mend them. And if we choose to give our lives over to Christ and make him Lord of our lives, we will see him work in our life, and
Yes.
he will use those broken pieces for the better. And all I want to do is use the pieces that God has given me to help other people, because I believe my story is not my own. I believe it is God's story, and it is my duty to use it in the best way possible to help other people find what I have found.
Amen. I think that's a great place to end. That was so well said. Oh gosh, Rebekah, I don't know how many I've said it way too many times, but I just love your story. I love how brave you are. You've totally inspired me. You have. So I'm so glad this worked out for us to talk. Hold your book up one more time. There it is, Beyond the Brokenness, a great story for anybody that needs inspiration or courage, or you've got a young girl at home, kind of, a teenager trying to work things out. This would be a great book for them, or really for anybody to garner strength from. Rebekah's story is amazing. And again, it's on Amazon, available on Amazon.
Yes. Yeah, so you can buy the book from Amazon, or if you want a signed copy, you can buy it directly from me, and you can find my contact info on my website called RebekahHope.org, and I believe we will put that in the
Yes.
description as well. But yeah, I also have it on Kindle. So if you want, I think it's like $3 or $4 on Kindle. And if you have Kindle Unlimited, it's actually free. So if you want to go that route, be a lot cheaper, but definitely, yeah, read the book
Yes.
and reach
Yes.
out to me. Let me know what you thought of it. I would love to hear your feedback.
Yes, yes. So we'll definitely put your website up on the description. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you again, Rebekah. But
Thanks.
stick around for just a few more minutes. So I'm going to sign off. Wish everybody a great day and aloha. Aloha again.